I know. I know.
Oh, man. Katie, are you all set to go? Katie?
Drew, who's Kentucky play?
LSU tomorrow night.
LSU. Okay.
Put that Tahj on there too. Where you at, Tahj?
I'm about 2 minutes from my house, just finishing up practice.
Oh, okay. That's what's up.
Just trying to be like Coach Williams, win a couple games, maybe get into the Hall of Fame as a coach, you know.
Yeah.
How's that new baby doing, Tahj?
He's doing fantastic. He's doing a great job of keeping me awake at night.
Definitely.
Hey, Johnny.
Yeah.
Johnny, so if you can introduce Tahj and Drew along with yourself and Gary, that would be great. Thank you, and Chris. Thank you guys for coming on. We really appreciate it. And Katie, what are our instructions here?
After Johnny's introduction, I will start picking.
I don't hear you.
I don't hear Katie.
Katie, can't hear you. Mm-mm. Increase your gain if you can.
Okay, what about now? Anything?
So, Mike, who's going to ask the questions?
Katie is going to field the questions.
Okay.
I'm going to turn my audio off. So it's just Katie will say, here's a question from blah, and you guys will respond to that. Okay.
All right.
Katie, we can barely hear you.
Well, he's in there.
Where are you, girl?
Trying to figure out the issue.
All right. She's trying to figure it out.
Hey, Drew. I see we got something in common too, son. I seen when you bent down there.
Seems to be.
I'm holding on for dear life, C-Dog.
It's true, dog, I'm telling you.
Between that and the grays, man, it's woof.
They coming in. I'm trying to figure out if I'm going gray or if it's going black. I don't even know now.
Well, I'm getting messages from Katie that we are having some technical issues that she's trying to resolve. So she's encouraged us to get started. So this is Sean. I'll field the questions until she's able to resolve her audio issue. So why don't we start, Johnny, with you?
All right.
That's a good question.
Well, we're actually, Johnny, do you want to do introductions?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were just taking questions.
Nope. If you want to introduce who we've got here tonight, and then
sure,
we'll go from there with questions.
Okay. All right. Okay. Happy to have on our reflection back to the 2002 National Championship team, the Hall of Fame coach Gary Williams, who coached that team to the national championship, first ever in Maryland history. Also, Chris Wilcox, who was a sophomore on that team, had a marvelous game in the championship game against Indiana. We have Drew Nicholas joining us tonight from Kentucky. I don't know what the heck he's doing at Kentucky, but he's joining us from Kentucky, also part of that national championship team. And Tahj Holden will be with us in just a couple of minutes. So then we're going to get to the questions. We thank you all very, very much for joining us tonight. It's been a lot of memories having watched the show for the last hour, and with Coach and Lonnie Baxter and Chris Wilcox reflecting back on that marvelous year, 20 years ago this year. So we open up for questions and fire away.
Our first question actually comes from Bob Pevenstein. Bob, if you want to unmute your mic and ask your question.
Well, I don't really have a question. I just want to say, just to show how old I am. My wife and I go back to watching Gary when we were at Maryland and he was the point guard. And so to come all the way forward, almost 40 years later, and then to be up in Minnesota, and then to be back as a fan the following year in Atlanta. I'm sure I'm speaking for most fans that, I mean, this was from a sports standpoint as a fan, all the different things, whether it's the college football, the NFL, Super Bowls. This was the pinnacle in my life, being there in Atlanta. And my son and I, so I want to thank Gary. I want to thank all the players, and you too, Johnny, because it was the thrill of a lifetime. And I know my son and I stayed there until well after it was over, just watching, looking at the scoreboard over and over again. And then finally we went to Jocks and Jill's to celebrate.
Wow. That's good. Thanks, Bob. Hey, Bob, you didn't mention how good of a point guard I was at Maryland. How come? Because I had some of my players there, and I used to tell them how good I was because nobody was born when I was playing.
Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, the same tenacity and everything else that you can describe about Gary on the there as a coach on the sideline was always exhibited from the beginning of the game. And I can remember, I went to a lot of games, and of course you could just walk right in those days.
Yeah.
And I guess I don't know, Gary, the biggest one I remember is when you guys beat Duke, and they were ranked number 2 in the country.
Right. I think we won that game in overtime. Remember Mike DeCosmo? He had a couple free throws at the end of that game to win that thing for us.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
We have another question tonight from our sponsor. I see a hand up. If you want to go ahead and just ask the question. There we go.
Gary, Ecklich, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Rich. How you doing?
You know, when you guys were cutting down the nets, I was standing down on the floor. I had my 6-year-old son on my shoulders, and Sleepy came over and grabbed him, put him on his shoulders. And we were standing down there with John Reimer and Novak and Jack Heisey. And the Channel 5 News came over and they put a microphone in my son's face at 6 and said, "What do you think about Maryland winning the national championship?" And he said, "I've been waiting 6 long years for this."
Yeah.
And to look at Novak and Reimer and Heisey, you know, that had been with the program for so many years, I just decided to chuckle. But my question, Gary, to you is about the beginning of that Kansas game. You guys were down 13-2 at the beginning of that game. Lonnie had 2 super, super quick fouls. He was on the bench for the rest of that half. What are you thinking at that point? And what did you guys do to turn that around? Because you had a gigantic lead against Kansas by the middle of that second half.
Yeah, well, I wasn't that concerned with Lonnie with the 2 fouls because we had Tahj Holden and Ryan Randall. So when we did get in foul trouble, we weren't really in foul trouble that year inside, but with our inside players, because I think we were as big as any team in the country. What I was thinking was you don't want to get down to a team like Kansas. They had been number 1 in the country regular season quite a few of those weeks, and they had a great ability to score. I mean, they had like 3 pros on that team that could really fill it up. And I was very concerned to get that far down early. But, you know, after we called timeout, that was an interesting huddle. You know, and I think we just decided that we're better than this, and we're going to go out and see what we can do. And really from about the 10-minute mark in the first half to 10 minutes into the second half, that's the best basketball we played all year. That was incredible against a very good team, how we came back, took the lead, and, you know, really extended it. And to get 95, I think we had in that game is just, you know, something that only a great offensive team can do.
Yeah, it was a fun-paced game. I mean, they were up and down, a typical Roy Williams team, and you guys were so quick too. So it was great fun. Great fun. Congratulations, guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Rich.
you, Rick.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, he mentioned 3 of the great supporters of Maryland basketball, and Jack Heisey and Bob Novak and John Reimer. They were always with us everywhere we went.
Yeah, they were the best because they really got into the program when Lefty Rizzo was coaching, and that's difficult to do. You know, Lefty was their coach, and and to give me the support that they gave Lefty was something I'll never forget because it was just something that they cared about Maryland basketball. They just wanted Maryland basketball to be really good, and it was funny with Bob Novak. He was an Illinois grad, and we just happened to play Illinois like 2 or 3 different times during a stretch there. And he almost wasn't going to come to the games because he was so torn about who to root for, his school or to root for his adopted school, the University of Maryland.
Yeah, great people, great people.
Okay, our next question is from Wally. Wally, if you want to turn your camera and your microphone on and ask your question, please.
Sure. We heard a lot today about the front court, and I see Tahj on the screen here. But the backcourt was pretty damn good, and I would look at Drew and say to him, "Man, you are a star of this team, and we didn't hear your name much." And Gary, it's kind of a question to the two of you. You are lucky as hell to have an unbelievable backcourt, an unbelievable big man, but we didn't talk a lot about the backcourt. So maybe start with Drew, your experience playing on that group, and then Gary, maybe you can comment on it.
Yeah. Like you said, I think I had the privilege to play, alongside, behind, whatever you want to call it, 2 pros in Steve Blake and Juan Dixon, and, all the things that I was able to learn, especially like for me, like Gary knows, like coming into college, I wasn't considered a point guard, but, from the time that I came in as a freshman, we didn't have any other options kind of behind us. So I had to play some point guard behind Steve, and I just kind of learned from him. And then the other times, then if I wasn't playing point guard, then I was guarding probably arguably, the best player in Maryland's history in Juan. So I think over the years, it was just only natural for me to get better and to learn from those guys, as well as all the coaches and the rest of our teammates. Like being around those guys each and every day just helped me become a better player.
I think Drew was one of the reasons we were so good. He would have had more playing time his junior year if he played on a lesser team, but because of what we were and the 2 guys he mentioned, Blake and Dixon, didn't get the playing time he probably deserved. But that next year, his senior year, we had a really good team, and I think people forget that Tahj Holden, Ryan Randall, Drew, guys like that. Steve Blake was back for another year. Well, we came very close in beating Michigan State to go to the Elite 8 that year. If we would have won that game. In fact, we missed a shot at the end of that game. It was pretty open that we had a chance to do that. So I think Drew proved, if anybody had any doubts, which I don't think they did, of how good he was that next year. And Drew went on to play very successfully in Europe for – how many years did you play over there, Drew? Quite a few.
Yeah, a decade.
Decade, yeah. Is that when you started to go gray, or was it when you came back to the United States?
That's when I came back to the United States and I started having those nightmares of you yelling at me all those times.
You probably were prematurely gray, as they say. It's like.
Yeah, I was going to certainly say I heard Drew's name a lot in practice from Coach. So even though you guys might not have heard it, I heard it a ton.
Yeah. Tahj is coaching now. Can you imagine playing for Tahj? All the big guys, hey, Chris, you'll like this. All the big guys are out in the 3-point line shooting threes.
5-out motion, Coach. 5-out motion.
I wouldn't even be able to play, Coach.
I think I'd find a way to get you the ball, Chris.
I appreciate it, Tahj. Put me in the game, Coach.
Yeah, I'd find time for you, Chris. Don't worry.
But no, man, you know what though? That year, Wally too, to go with it, man. Juan, Drew, and Steve, man, they kind of set the example for us too, man. Because Juan, like Drew said, man, he had a great example to follow behind. Because Steve and Juan, man, it was just something. Like I was telling them before, like them guys would be in the gym, had their girlfriends passing them the basketball. I'm like, what is this going on? You know what I'm saying? And that's when I knew we had something special, man, where everybody was tuned in, man. And like Drew going against them every day, you know what I'm saying? Just like for me, being on that second squad, man, gave me motivation, man. And we worked hard. We put in the work. So when we got in the game, man, we ain't had no choice. So, man, Drew, man, he put in the work. So, that next year, he got what he deserved. Like I said, he was playing against one of the best players in the ACC. I didn't see nobody stopping Juan, in the runs that we had, and for Drew to come up behind that and follow them shoes and be able to get to where they did the next year, man, that was big too. And it had me say, I felt proud too, because then I can be able to talk a little bit of trash, you know what I mean?
Okay, our next question. Ed, you're up. Please turn your camera and microphone on and ask your question. Ed, are you there? Okay, while we're waiting for Ed to get his camera going, I have a question. It's actually for the three former players. You guys win a national title, 19, 20, 21 years old. It's 20 years later. Has your perspective on the game and what it meant changed in that time? And if so, how?
I'll let one of you guys go first.
Yeah, I will say now that I'm more so in Coach Williams' shoes, when I look back on what we did and how we accomplished it, it definitely is a little different. Because, I think we knew at the time we didn't have any McDonald's All-Americans on our team. And I think at that point, it had been 20 or 30 years that every national championship team had the McDonald's All-American on their team. And we did not, but we had 13 guys that came into practice every day and competed. And, I tell these stories now, and I feel like one of the coaches on our staff who used to tell us the stories about when they were at Maryland, about just how hard it was to win a championship. And we didn't know that it was that hard for us when we were going through it. We just, it was the next game up and we had a bunch of talented guys. But, when you sit back and look at the teams we beat to win a championship and the championship pedigree that all of those programs had, we were the underdogs, even though we were probably the best team in the tournament that year. So it's just looking back on it now, 20 some odd years ago, thinking that I was a crazy young 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid that didn't know any better. Now recognizing that was an incredible feat we accomplished with just a great group of guys and a great group of competitors.
And for me, man, it was just, it was a great feeling because I was in a situation where I came from a small town where, I was, always the man playing ball and stuff like that, going into a situation to whereas now I'm playing behind some folk, having to learn the game and getting extra shots up. I was just telling somebody the other day, man, I didn't know nothing about getting no extra shots and none of that. Everything I had was just straight raw talent. I just played basketball every day. That was it. And for me, once I seen the buy-in, it was like, man, you got to put in the work. That's what got us to be champions, you know what I'm saying? And nowadays, I don't see, I see a lot of it, but then it's certain groups of guys that, that tie in like that. A lot of teams don't be able to lock in like that, and get all the guys on the same page. And we was able to get every guy on the same page, and we held each other accountable, every day in practice, we talk trash in practice every day. We want to win. Every team want to win. You know what I mean? So we helped each other get to the next level, man. That's how we was able to have so much success on the road to the championship. And that's how we was able to put pros into the league too, So, we all competed against each other and we held each other accountable. But nowadays, I just don't see that. I'm not saying that they don't have it, but they just don't, I don't see the buy-in like it was when we was playing. That's just me, seeing from the outside.
Yeah, for me, just kind of building off of what both Tahj and Chris said, I think as time goes on, you begin to relish it and understand how big it was. Probably when we did it, we understood that we won a national championship and we won something that was a goal for us that year. But as time keeps moving on and every year we move into the month of March, it becomes a little bit more special to me, at least. And I think probably to our teammates as well as Coach Williams and everybody else who is involved with the program, just because, it was such a special period of time in our lives. Being able to come together as a group and accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. And, it's funny for me, now still working within the game and going to a lot of games, you run into certain people and, people want to come up and talk to you about it. Like I remember it was just a couple of weeks ago, I was at a Miami Heat game and I had the chance to run into Karan Butler. And I told him, I said, hey, man, I really ain't appreciate the 34 you gave us, but we beat you guys that day. And, we laughed and chuckled about it. And it's those kinds of small things that you're able to take with you and remember for the rest of your life.
And something from what Chris said about guys today on teams today don't have that instinct you guys had. There was 12 guys in that roster for the national championship team. Every single guy had the same attitude of we're not going to be beat. And everybody reflected what Coach Williams kind of set the standard for everybody. You may have one or two guys today that are really hard-nosed and can't be beat type of guys that play basketball, but not 12 guys or not 14 guys in the roster. And I think as Tahj said, there wasn't a McDonald's All-American in that team. It was just everybody that came together. And that's a special magic that I think is missing today in college basketball. A lot of individuals out there, but on this team, it was a team effort to win that national championship.
Well, yeah, I mean, Johnny, just to piggyback off of what you said, I think I've said it before, I think one of the most special things about our group is that we all had a certain chip on our shoulder. Yeah. And honestly, it started with Coach. It started with Coach Williams, because I know that he was always wanting to kind of make sure that people looked at him as one of the elite coaches in the country that he was. And, winning a national championship helps validate that. And we always knew when there were big games coming up, especially when we were getting ready to play Duke, Coach would walk up on his tippy toes a little bit higher that week and make sure that we were ready to play. But it was that collective groups. We all had a certain level of, we wanted to prove somebody else wrong. And I think that was our edge, from the first guy all the way down to the 14th or 15th or 12th man, whatever it was.
As Coach said, it was us against them, and us always won because us was tougher.
We had some, but you got to look at it too, man, Drew, man, we had some great practices, man. Every day we competed, like, it wasn't like, okay, today, every game, every practice that we had, man, was a tough one. You know what I'm saying? And I could feel every day we got out of there, we got better. You know what I mean?
I even extended into the tournament time, because I remember me and Mouton almost got into a fight at the Final Four in practice because we were just competing, and Mouton was my roommate. That's my guy. And we all know Mouton, there's not a mean bone in his body, right? But we were just out there competing, and that was an everyday thing. And to Drew's point, all of us came in there with some sort of chip on. Drew was just a shooter, everybody said. Steve Blake is, he had a great high school team. Of course, he's a good point guard. Tahj Holden's too soft. Lonnie's too small. Juan's too skinny. Like, everybody has something that we had to prove everybody else wrong, and I think we all collectively did that job.
Yeah.
Okay, we're running short on time, but I know we have two more questions. Ed, did you get are you with us, Ed? I thought I saw Ed's microphone on. Rick, I know you've got a question too. You got your hand up. You want to go?
Happy to. You guys talk about how tight that team was. I just remember, Mouton was such a big scorer at Tulane, and he comes to Maryland, and he did. He wasn't a scorer. He did all the little stuff to make you guys win. Gary, I remember how much what a hard time you got when you recruited Lonnie. I remember when Juan signed out of Cabot Hall, how much of a hard time you got. This kid's not a ACC player. He's only 145 pounds. You watched him this summer diving across the floor. He'd do anything to win. I remember how much of a hard time you got. But which player do you think from this team was the biggest celebration in your office when you got a commitment from that player?
Well, when you recruit, I always recruited guys I thought that I could coach. That was the big thing, because coaches do that all the time. They get a guy who might be a good player, but they can't coach him. It's just the personalities don't blend or whatever. And, you know, each coach has a certain personality, and I'm sure guys didn't like me at times and things like that. But at the same time, I think all the players felt that I was trying to, you know, just have the best basketball team we could have. I mean, I didn't have any agendas. I didn't, you know, the best guys were going to play. And, you know, that was my job to try to find that out. But, you know, in terms of recruiting, you know, Tahj, you know, a 6'10" player that could really handle the ball, pass, shoot, coming out of New Jersey. I didn't care what people rated him. I mean, you can pay people nowadays to rate your players higher than they probably should be. And I never got into that. And a guy like Drew, all I knew was he could really shoot the basketball. And yeah, people said he was not a point guard, but you know, you can learn how to handle the ball. But Drew knew the game. Drew knew how to play. He knew how to get open. Like all good shooters have to know how to get open. And, you know, and Chris Wilcox, I saw him play the night before we played NC State down in Raleigh. And Chris made a couple plays that you can't teach, just timing wise in a block shot or going over somebody for a rebound, things like that. And, you know, just things like that, you know, that are people that can become really good players. And, you know, unless you have a certain level of talent, I don't care how good of a coach you are, you can't make guys, you know, really good players. But these guys did two things. They developed their talent, and then they were willing to use that to make the team better. A lot of guys want to be better players, but they don't necessarily want to give that back to the team. These guys were willing to give that back to the team.
I'll just quickly say that Maryland didn't necessarily have to do a whole lot of recruiting with me. As soon as I heard that they liked me a little bit, I was banging on that door and saying, where can I sign? Because I'm ready. I'm ready to come play in the ACC. You know, for Tahj and Chris, it was a little bit different, but you know, for me to play at an ACC school for a coach like Coach Williams, like there wasn't a whole lot of recruiting going on. If anything, I was probably trying to sell myself to coach in the university more than anything.
Chris, I remember your blocks against Gooden in the Kansas game. And Tahj, I remember your three that you hit against Stanford the year before to put us into the Final Four for the first time. I mean, just you guys all caused a lot of people around the state to hug each other during those games, no doubt. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Rick, for being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Hey, love that picture behind you, Chris. Great shot behind you there.
Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Coach Williams, Johnny, Tahj, Chris, Drew, thank you for sharing with us. You know, this is the 20th anniversary. I know you guys the team is reuniting this weekend. That's got to be special. But as always, the Babe Ruth Birthplace Museum sincerely appreciates the support that you give us. And of course, Rick, thank you for sponsoring tonight's program. I encourage everybody, we have 2 more nights of programming. So certainly tune in if you're interested. Tomorrow night, we have from the 2012 Baltimore Orioles team, JJ Hardy and Matt Wieters. And then Thursday night, we're concluding with Fat Jack Fisher, Oriole from the 1960s, who pitched Roger Maris's 60th home run to tie Babe Ruth. So we've got some great programs for the rest of the week. But again, on behalf of the Babe Ruth Museum, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight, and especially thank you for our VIP guests for always supporting us. Sincerely appreciated.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great celebration, guys. Congratulations on 20 years.
Great job.
Thank you.